So, what do you need to do when you open up your ready-to-run car? Well, we're going to walk through all the steps of what to check, including these. So you have your brand new RTR out of the box. What is it you should do first? Well, first, look at the manual. Manual's important. You're also going to want to look at these technical guides or get started guides. They're also really helpful, especially if you're new to the hobby. Getting familiar with these, getting familiar with all the elements of your car before you just jump right in, I think is a critical step. So I do what I call a shakedown, and I do it in 3 phases. The first phase is the pre-run. So that's what we're at right now. We have brand new Arrma Vendetta in front of us. I'm going to show you what to check before you go out. Then you're going to go out and run it, and there are going to be a few things you're going to want to look at there as well to see how it performs. Just some basic stuff. And then after that, you're going to bring it back. You're going to do your post-run shakedown, all the stuff you need to be looking at after you've ran the car. So the first thing to look at is the obvious. Make sure you don't see any fraying in the wires, you don't see any chips or anything that looks wrong in the chassis, right? All of your elements are where they're supposed to be. Body posts are secure. You can always look and make sure that all the holes on the body posts are going the same direction. You're going to want to flex the suspension a little bit, make sure it doesn't bind up. Okay, should be nice and smooth, and you're going to do that front and rear. You can push down on it, make sure you got enough rebound. Then you're going to want to check all of your shocks and anything that is lubricated for leaks. So under here where the shocks are at, you'll want to look to see if there's been any shock oil come out up here at the cap. You'll look around the diffs down in here, and up here in the front to see if there is any grease on the outside. Just wiggle your drive shaft a little bit. You can always pick it up, turn the wheels, see if the drive shaft moves. This is open diffs, so you'll notice when you spin one tire one way, the other side goes the other direction. Okay. And this is also a good time to point out that this that I'm showing you doesn't necessarily apply to all vehicles. For example, if you have a rock crawler, you're going to want to make sure and give extra special attention to the shocks. You're also going to want to make sure that if you have portal axles, that the portals turn freely. Now at this stage, a lot of people will just completely tear it down, open it up, check the front and rear diffs for oil. Okay, here and here again. They'll pull off the shocks, make whatever adjustments. If you're new to this, I recommend you don't go that route, at least to start with. As you build your skills and you build your knowledge, then that would be the time to say, okay, I got this brand new ready to run car, but I want to make sure everything is in perfect order before I take it out. Now, there are going to be some vehicles that have known issues, right? You're going to know about it, before you buy the car. You've been online exploring, hearing what other people have to say about the car, and, you'll have to give certain things extra special attention. That's not at all uncommon, really, with any RC car. But, just as a general starting point, you're going to give this a solid look over. Another thing you're going to want to do, you're going to want to flip the car over and look at the bottom of the chassis. All of these screws, you want them to be in there snug. So most of these take a 2mm hex driver, and I just put the driver in there, check that they're all nice and snug. You don't want any of them to be loose. I don't really crank down on them. Now this one and a couple others take a 2.5mm screw, a hex driver. So regardless, you'll want to go around and check and make sure everything is in good position. You can see right here on the side, the guards, there are some screws, and see that one right there is a little loose, and tighten that up. Do the same thing all the way around. So I'm going to do that, and then we're going to go to the next part of the pre-run check. Okay, so now we've gone through, we've made sure all of the screws are in tight, that everything moves really well with the wheels. We don't feel any binding with our suspension. So now it's time for the desktop check. Now the reason I do this inside is because I don't want to get out where I'm going to run it and then find out something's wrong. If there's something wrong, I can find out what it is here and fix it here before I get out. So I'm going to turn on the radio. You'll need your own AA batteries for that. Then we're going to hook up the LiPo. I'm running this check on a 2S LiPo. This is obviously 3S capable, but I'm not trying for any speed records on my bench right now. So 2S will do the job. And we hit this button to turn it on. All right, and you hear the fans power up. Those last two little beeps were an indication that we are hooked to a 2S LiPo battery. And you shouldn't hear any binding, and the fans shouldn't hear any grinding. It should just be nice and smooth. First thing we want to do is we want to check the steering. We're just looking to make sure that nothing binds up, that our steering is free to move as we need it to. No issues there. Next, we want to put power to the car. I have it lifted up off the ground. I'm just going to put a little bit. What we're looking for is we're looking for the tires to move in unison and to slow down and stop in unison. So no issues there. You don't really have to, but I'm going to go ahead and give it some power while it's sitting on the bench. I don't recommend you do this necessarily, at least not without hanging on real tight. Lots of power. Another reason to do this at home and check this is obviously you're wanting to go through and make sure all the bits are where they're supposed to be, but you don't want to get out there, have a brand new RC car that then doesn't work, and all the people you're with, well, you give them a good time. You give them a good laugh, but your new RC car isn't working or something's broken. For reverse, this car is set up to have forward, brake, and reverse. You can set it up just to do forward and brake if you'd like. You'll push the trigger forward once, and that is the brake, and then you'll push it forward again, and that's your reverse. Everything looks to be in pretty good condition. I don't hear any grinding. I don't hear anything that is troubling to me. The fans are moving fine, pulling in lots of air. Can feel them there. All of my wired connections are good. So now we're going to go and we're going to take it out for a test run. So I actually do have a little bit of a leak down here. What I'm going to do is I'll put on my headset here to get down in there and take a peek. It's possible that it's just stuff left on the axle or coming out of the diff. And in this particular case, it looks like they really oiled up the joint going into the diff. I don't actually see any leaks, so this is not really anything to be concerned about. Like I say, this is exactly why you do this at home first. Okay, you can see there's a little bit of oil right there. Right here, we don't see anything coming out of the diff. I don't see anything coming out of any place on the shocks. So I think what happened is that they lubricated this really, really well at the factory. When I put some power to it, it just threw some of the leftover oil down here on the arm. There's some back there on the diffuser, but this is definitely nothing to be concerned about. Okay, so we're just doing our braking run here. I'm got it slow. I got the throttle set 50%, which is something you can do on the radio. Just checking to see how it responds. It's a pretty quick little car. I'm barely on the throttle right here at 50%. Right, so we're gonna do a little bit more here. Steering a lot. That's on purpose. So I'm out just driving the car around, seeing how much power it puts to the ground in different scenarios when I turn it hard in a straight line. You're wanting to drive this, eventually get it up to speed and drive it the way you would anytime, but we're going to slowly build there, and we're going to stop, and we're going to occasionally check and look at the suspension, look at the chassis. We're going to take the temperature of the motor and the ESC just to make sure everything is running smoothly. Now I'm going to turn the power all the way up, and I'm going to put it through its paces again. So you always want to make sure to take the time to clean your cars when you're done. Your parts will last longer. You don't have to worry about rust ruining the screws or any of the metal parts. As you can see here, we've gotten it a little dirty. There's quite a bit of gunk from the pavement, just general debris that comes from the first time you take a car out and run it. Dirt and dust had settled in there, machine oil. So we're going to go home, we're going to clean it, we're going to give it a nice relaxing bath, if you will, although we're not technically submerging it, but yeah, keep them clean. One other thing, here's the body. All of that in there, that's dust, that's nastiness. So you even need to clean the body. So you've gotten your car out, you've done a shakedown run, you got a sense of what it's like, so what's next? Well, next you're going to do a lot of what you did before, as far as checking for leaks and looking at your screws. And again, as a reminder, this could be different. There could be additional steps if you're doing something different, like a basher or a crawler or whatever the case may be. I tend to try to clean mine. I go over it after out in the field briefly to make sure there are no broken parts, nothing's missing, and then I'll come home and clean it and do a more thorough examination. So let's take off the body here. You'll want to examine the body, look for places that are possibly rubbing. See some rubbing down in here on the inside of this fender right here. And that's simply where I was using the car to drift and do things it really wasn't designed for. So that's all on me. You're going to go, and I try to do this in a very systematic fashion where I go front to back or back to front, whatever the case, whatever you like to do. Go through, make sure all the links are situated the way they're supposed to be. There should still be some side to side movement on the balls. Make sure there's no cracks or damage to the shock tower. Check the upper and lower shocks. Again, looking for damage, looking for anything to be loose. These are fine. You're also checking for leaks. If you have a nice soft foam front bumper, you shouldn't see any damage there unless you've crashed. This also should be secure. On most RC cars, you're always going to want to check the A-arms, the ones that have them. You can get a lot of stress here, you can get a lot of breaks. Some cars don't come with the very best plastic here, so make sure to give this plenty of attention. If you want to take off the wheels and tires and look at the knuckles on the back side, which is not always necessary, but there's nothing wrong with doing it. When you remove your tires, you'll want to give them an inspection, see what condition they're in. Is it time to be replaced? Did you cause any damage? Again, I was using this car for trying to get sideways a little bit, and the tires now are not as sticky. They're actually kind of rough. I don't think these tires will last but a few more runs if I continue to drive it this way. But, I enjoy it. You're going to want to check the diffs, front and rear diffs, or if you only have a rear, just the rear diff, obviously. Roll the axle side to side. You're looking for anything to come out of where the diff is in the bulkhead. You're also going to look for any kind of cracks or damage there. Much like the A-arms, the bulkheads can get damaged. So you're going to want to take a look at that. Once we're done looking at the front and the suspension and the links, tires, move to the middle of the vehicle. and you're looking again to see if there's any burn marks or frayed lines. Just checking to make sure there was no heat damage. I usually will use a thermometer and take the temperature of the ESC, the tires, the motor, and so on as I'm driving, but it doesn't mean I can't miss something, so it's worth keeping an eye on. Same story with the servo, looking at the wires. Everything should be able to move still side to side like that. Checking the center drive shaft, make sure there's no damage. Your receiver box here, making sure it looks good. And this is also your opportunity to look over the entire chassis to look for cracks. This has a composite tub style chassis, so it's kind of like there are fenders built in the front to keep the dirt and crud off. Sometimes you'll have a metal chassis or some combination of that. If you have a metal chassis, I strongly recommend making sure that it's still straight down here and that you haven't bent anything. It's not at all uncommon with bashers for the front part of a metal chassis to bend, or the rear part, and then it's not straight and it's not true, and it, you know, you can go with it. There's nothing to keep you from using it, but it's going to be more difficult to handle. Other things are going to begin to break. For a car like this with a slipper clutch, you should be able to hear it. Oops, excuse me. Should be able to hear it rolling side to side. If it sounds like it's grinding, maybe you've got the mesh too tight or you did some damage to the slipper clutch, but that's a big concern when you're going in there and making modifications, like when I added the speed pinion to this. Out of the box, probably not as big of a deal. On the back side, again, you're checking the arms, the wheels, tires, checking to look for any issues down in the diff. And that's the basic overview here. You're also going to want to give it a detailed cleaning. I have another video coming soon on how to clean your RC. And take into consideration too, if you are crawling, if you have a rock crawler, you're going to want to pay particular attention to the shocks, and you're also going to want to make sure that the diffs are situated the way they're supposed to be. With bashers, you're going to look a lot for those break points, for the shock towers. You're going to pay a lot of attention to the chassis. But yeah, this is it. This is how you get out your new RTR, test it out, make sure everything's working the way you want. Now you're at the point where you can change the programming, begin making modifications, whatever makes you happy. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe, and until next time,